I'm a 21-year-old male. I ended up in foster care at 9 years old because of the abuse I suffered at the hands of my stepfather, a man my mom kept choosing over me. Despite all the support and interventions that were supposed to protect me, my mom refused to kick him out. Even after she had a restraining order against him, she still let him back into our lives. Meanwhile, she went on to have 2 more children with this man, my half-brothers, who are now 19, Richie, and 16, James. It got to the point where it was obvious that no matter what, she would keep letting him back into our lives and allowing me to be his scapegoat of anything that was wrong in life, and I ended up being removed. After I was removed from the home, my mom was allowed to keep and raise my brothers, as if nothing had happened. From what I know, my stepdad never laid a hand on them. My mom and this man are still together. I know because I've checked her Facebook more times than I'd like to admit. Growing up, it was devastating to realize that my mom would rather give me up than fight for me. She could have kept me if she just left him, but she didn't. This abandonment left me with deep scars and a lot of issues to deal with as I grew up. It didn't help that she cut off all contact with me almost as soon as I was placed in foster care. She wouldn't even show up for court-ordered visits. Foster care was also really rough for me. I bounced around 3 different families, and it wasn't until the last one that I got any therapy to help me make sense of what had happened. A few days ago, out of nowhere, I got a Facebook message from my Richie and James. They said they've been thinking about me a lot and want to get to know me. They even mentioned that our mom talks about me sometimes and wonders how I'm doing. They said he'd like to start some kind of relationship if I'm open to it. And Richie said he would be willing to drive him and James to come and visit me wherever I am in the country. They both seemed nice in this message, and I don't have an issue with either of them. At first, I was going to ignore the message because I don't want anything to do with my biological family. But then a darker thought crossed my mind. This could be my one and only chance to expose my stepdad for the monster he truly is. I could finally tell my half-brothers everything he did to me, everything he put me through, and let the truth come crashing down on them. I know that if I do this, it'll probably destroy any chance of having a relationship with them, but honestly, I'm not sure I want one anyway. I told my friend that I was thinking about doing this, and he said it's a really bad idea that won't accomplish anything I want it to. He said it will most likely just cause them to think I'm bitter and mean and won't make them have any issues with their dad. But, well, I know it would be a difficult thing to process. I would want to know if my dad was like that. I would want to know the truth about how my dad treated other children. I don't know how much they know about why I was removed into care. So, would I be the a-hole if I went through with it? Relevant comments. Commenter, not wrong. What happened to you is terrible. There's a good chance you'd be talking about what happened to you anyway, since they want to get to know you. But they are not to blame for what their dad and your mother put you through. So if they ask, then ask them if they really want to know the truth of what happened. If they say yes, there's your permission. Commenter, if the sole reason you want to get in contact with them is to cause issues between them and their brother, then yes, maybe you are wrong. But if you want a relationship with them and the topic comes up, you equally shouldn't have to censor yourself or tell any lies about their father. Commenter, not passing judgment, but your stepdad and their dad are different people. What do you gain by ruining their image of their dad? Would you be happy if they end up hating their dad and no longer have a relationship with him? Would it make you feel good to strip your brothers of their dad? Because honestly, I don't see a reason for you to poison the well unless that's your endgame, and that would make you TA. I have a half-sister. Our dad was awful for me. He was horrifically abusive to my mom and abandoned us after never paying child support. He would love bomb and then disappear over and over. If I was unhappy, it was always my fault. My half-sister grew up with a loving and attentive dad. They're super close and she loves him dearly. She knows that our dad and I have a more difficult past, but I never try to damage her relationship with him. I'm happy she has a dad that is good to her. What would I gain from hurting their relationship? I would hurt her, and he genuinely is a different person as I'm significantly older than her and he has matured in that time. I'm not saying that's the case with your stepdad, but I would never hurt my half-sister because of my childhood pain. Update 1. Hey everyone, I wanted to come back and give you all an update. First off, thanks for all the advice and different perspectives. I really needed to hear them. So, after thinking a lot about what everyone said and after having a session with my therapist, I realized that my initial plan to tell my brothers everything about my stepdad wasn't really about helping them. It was more about me still holding on to the anger and hurt from my past, and that's not fair to them. A lot of you pointed out that they probably don't know the full story and are innocent in all this. And honestly, that hit hard. I decided to reach out to my Richie brother and told him I'd like to meet up. I didn't mention anything about our mom or the stepdad situation. I figured if we were going to start a relationship, it's better to take things slow and not dump all that heavy stuff on them right away. We ended up meeting at a cafe. I was super nervous, but when I saw them, it actually felt nice. They were both really nice, and we just talked about normal stuff like what we've been up to, our favorite football teams, that sort of thing. It was weirdly easy to chat with them. At one point, the James asked why I was placed in foster care. That caught me off guard, but I decided to keep it vague and just said that things were complicated at home back then, and that going into care was what was best for me at the time. James started pushing a bit for more details, but the Richie told him to knock it off, which honestly was a relief. By the end of it, I was glad I went. They asked if we could stay in touch, and I said yes. I'm still figuring out how much to share about what happened, but for now, I'm just trying to focus on building a relationship with them. I realized that while the past is important, it doesn't have to dictate how things go with them now. So yeah, thanks again to everyone who helped me see things clearer. I'm feeling a lot more hopeful about this, and I'm really glad I didn't just go with my gut reaction to tell them everything right off the bat. We'll see where things go from here, but I'm cautiously optimistic. Update 2. Before anything, I read a lot of your comments. So many were saying I was selfish for wanting to expose my stepdad, and then so many were saying I was a coward for not. Some people were saying I was allowing the abuser to get away with it by not telling my brothers. I had DMs calling me an abuse apologist. People calling me a liar for not answering the question James asked when we first met. I never said I wasn't ever going to talk to them about my past. Literally in my last post I said I was still working on sharing my past in a healthy way, with help from my therapist, and yet I had people acting like they knew best and that I should just tell them both right away. So many people arguing about it one way or the other. It does seem like everything I do there will be issues, I will upset someone. I know that, and I am trying to navigate this in my own way, so please be respectful of that. Even if you would have done it a different way. I am in no way letting SD get away with the abuse. I tried everything I could as a child/teen to get him prosecuted. I have accepted that that will never happen. Just know I am a real person who reads the comments. Not everything I do is perfect. But please just be kind. I don't say this to stop people from giving me advice. I love advice. Just be positive and kind. I don't need more negativity. Anyway, in the week since my last post, I have met up with my brothers 3 more times. Once with both, and 2 times it has been just me and Richie. There seems to have been an instant bond between us. Something that I didn't even know I wanted. I am loving hanging out with them, which is amazing because I didn't even think I ever wanted to see any of my family again. Never mind start to develop a good relationship with some of them. When I last met up with Richie alone, we went to go see a movie and then get something to eat. We spoke about our plans and what he does now. And we got talking about me and foster care. I asked him what he had been told about me growing up. He said they haven't been told much, but that mom sometimes talks about me. I asked him what he remembered of me and why I was taken into care. He said he has some memories, fuzzy memories and clear memories. But he said he didn't know for certain what happened. He said he remembered a lot of fighting and arguing between me and SD. He said he had one very clear memory of me, but said he didn't know whether it was appropriate for him to share it or not. He asked me what I remembered, and I said it was difficult for me to talk about with people. He said he understood if I didn't want to get into it. I asked him what his clear memory was. He remembered me being about 8 years old, my SD stripping me nuked and putting me in a dog's collar and making me eat dog food. He said he remembered his dad hitting me with his belt as I was eating out the dog bowl and crying. This actually happened many times for me growing up, but he said he only remembered it once. I started crying and he apologized for bringing it up, and I said don't. I was glad he at least remembered some things of my abuse. He said he guessed that the abuse by SD was the reason I was taken away. I said yeah. I asked if SD ever abused either of them, and he said he hadn't ever. But he said he wasn't close to either my mom or his dad. He said they weren't ever amazingly loving people, but never abused them. He said he was sorry again. We spoke some more about our childhood. I felt safer talking about the abuse since he already remembered some of it. We spoke a bit more about it. I tried answering questions he had, and he answered some of mine. He asked if the trauma still impacts me now, and I said yeah. I was open with him that I've attempted to end my own life multiple times because of it. He apologized for not being there for me, for not sticking up for me. I said nothing that happened was his fault or my fault and that we can't change the past. After we finished, we both went to our own homes. He messaged me saying he's glad I grew up and that I managed to keep living. He meant it sweetly, I think, even though it came off a little weird. I feel really amazing that I have a brother who seems to care about me. I couldn't even have imagined he would have liked me a few weeks ago. Update 3. First off, Richie and I have grown really close. Like, unexpectedly close. We've been hanging out a lot, and it's actually been really healing for me. For the first time, I feel like I have someone who gets it, or at least tries to. But here's where things start to get complicated. Because of course, they do, right? So, James is still pushing for more details. At first, I thought he was just curious in a normal way, but now I'm not so sure. The last time we all met up, James casually mentioned that he'd been asking our mom about me, and apparently she told him some, let's just say, interesting things. According to her, I was a troubled kid with anger issues who needed special attention that she just couldn't provide. Can you believe that? She's still spinning this narrative where she's the victim, and I'm just some difficult kid who couldn't be helped. Richie was quiet during this whole conversation, just letting James talk. But I could tell he was thinking. After James left, Richie asked me if any of what Mom said was true, and I lost it. I told him everything. I didn't plan to, but it all came spilling out. The abuse, the isolation, how she chose that man over me again and again. I wasn't even angry, I was just exhausted from holding it in. Richie sat there, listening, not interrupting once. When I finally stopped talking, he just looked at me and said, "I'm sorry, I didn't know." And then he hugged me. It wasn't one of those awkward, polite hugs either. It was a real, bone-crushing hug, like he was trying to hold all the broken pieces of me together. But here's the kicker. Richie told me he's planning to confront our mom. He wants to know why she lied, why she let everything happen, why she's still with that monster. And now I don't know what to do. I didn't want to drag him into this mess. But here we are. Part of me wants to stop him, to protect him from the inevitable fallout. But another part of me thinks maybe this is what needs to happen. Maybe it's time for the truth to come out, no matter how much it hurts. Then there's James. I haven't heard from him since that last meetup. Richie says he's been quiet too. I'm worried he's talking to Mom, getting fed more of her twisted version of events. I don't know what he's thinking, but I can't shake the feeling that things are about to blow up in a big way. Update 4. Well, I didn't expect to be back so soon, but things have seriously escalated. So, remember how Richie was planning to confront our mom? Yeah, that happened, and it was a complete disaster. He called me right after, and I could hear it in his voice things were bad. Apparently, he showed up at our mom's house unannounced. He started asking her about everything, why she let the abuse happen, why she lied to James, why she's still with that monster. And you know what her response was? She started crying, like full-on waterworks, claiming she did what she thought was best for everyone, that she was trapped and didn't know what else to do. She tried to turn it around on Richie, saying he didn't understand because he was just a kid and didn't see the whole picture. But Richie wasn't having any of it. He told her straight up that she failed me, that she chose a man over her own son, and that he didn't know how to trust her anymore. That's when things got ugly. According to Richie, our stepdad walked in during this whole confrontation, and instead of backing down or apologizing, the guy had the audacity to tell Richie to leave the past where it belongs. Can you believe that? Like, everything that happened was just some inconvenient memory we're supposed to forget. Richie lost it. He said he told our stepdad that he was a coward, that he'd ruined our family, and that he couldn't believe our mom was still with him. And then this is where it gets really messed up. Our mom defended him. She told Richie to stop disrespecting his father, and that if he couldn't handle it, he should just leave. So Richie left. He walked out, and he hasn't spoken to either of them since. When he told me all this, I didn't know what to say. I could hear how hurt he was, how betrayed he felt. And the worst part is, I feel responsible for dragging him into this mess. If I hadn't opened up to him, maybe he wouldn't have confronted them, and he wouldn't be feeling this way now. But at the same time, I'm glad he knows the truth. I just didn't think it would blow up like this. And then there's James. I tried reaching out to him, but he's completely ghosted me. No texts, no calls, nothing. Richie thinks he's staying with our parents, and honestly, that scares me. If our mom's feeding him her version of events, and our stepdad's in his ear too, I don't know what he's going to believe. I'm worried that whatever relationship I was starting to build with him is now totally shattered. Richie's been staying with a friend since the blow-up. He says he needs space, but I can tell he's struggling. He keeps apologizing to me, saying he wishes he'd done more back then, that he feels guilty for having a normal childhood compared to mine. I keep telling him it's not his fault, but I don't know if he believes me. As for me, I'm just trying to keep my head above water. This whole thing has stirred up so much old pain, stuff I thought I'd buried a long time ago. My therapist says I need to focus on self-care, but honestly, that feels impossible right now. So here we are. Richie's cut off from our parents, James is MIA, and I'm sitting here wondering what the hell comes next. I wish I had some kind of plan or even a clue of where this is all going, but I don't. All I know is that things have changed, and there's no way to undo what's been done. Update 5. So, after Richie's confrontation and James going radio silent, things just kept spiraling. Richie started drinking more, something he didn't really do before. He'd call me late at night, drunk, slurring apologies and talking about how messed up our family is. I was worried about him, but I didn't know how to help. I'm barely keeping it together myself. Then, out of nowhere, James finally reached out. It was a text that simply said, "We need to talk. Can I come over?" I stared at my phone for what felt like forever before finally replying, "Sure." When he showed up at my place, he looked different, like he'd aged a decade in just a few weeks. He sat down, and for the longest time, we didn't say anything. Finally, he broke the silence. "I've been staying with them," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "And it's been hell." Turns out, after Richie's blow-up, our stepdad went full-on dictator mode. He laid down the law with James, trying to control every aspect of his life. Our mom, of course, just stood by and let it happen. James said he started seeing the cracks in the perfect image he'd always had of them. He started remembering things from when we were younger, things he'd buried, like the time he saw me with bruises, or the nights he heard me crying in my room. He told me that one night, after a particularly nasty argument with our stepdad, he confronted our mom. He asked her point blank why she let it all happen, why she didn't protect me. And you know what she said? "Because I couldn't lose him too." Him too. James said that was the moment he realized the truth. She chose that man over all of us. Over me, over Richie, and now even over James. She'd rather keep her sick, twisted relationship with him than have a real family. So James walked out, just like Richie did. And now, here he was, sitting in my living room, asking me what the hell we do now. I didn't have an answer for him. I'm not some wise older brother who has all the answers. Hell, I'm as lost as he is. But for the first time, I felt like we were in this together, not just me against the world anymore. Richie came over a few hours later. I hadn't told him James was coming, so when he saw him sitting there, he just froze. But then James stood up, walked over, and hugged him. Richie looked shocked for a second. Then he broke down crying. And that was it, something in me snapped, and I started crying too. We spent the rest of the night talking, really talking. No more lies, no more avoiding the truth. We talked about everything, our messed up childhood, the trauma, the anger, the guilt. It was raw and brutal, but it was also healing in a way I didn't expect. By the time the sun came up, we'd made a decision. We're cutting them off. All of them. No more trying to salvage a relationship with people who've proven time and again that they don't deserve it. We're done. But here's the thing, we're not done with each other. For the first time, we're actually brothers, not just strangers who share some DNA. Richie and James both said they're in this for the long haul, and for the first time, I actually believe them.